Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are going to see what if Naruto fell in love with Shizune part 1. Hope you will enjoy this video, so before we start please like the video and subscribe to our channel and hit bell notification, it motivates me to upload more fanfics for my lovely audience. So let's get started. While the older man radiated patience and a content to simply take in everything around him as he was walking, the young boy walking alongside him had not yet learned the virtue, and made it painfully known to his companion. If his fidgeting around and pulling out portions of his own hair was any indication. "Are we there yet, Ero Sennin?" asked a short 12-year-old blonde wearing an orange jumpsuit of all things. "Don't call me that, you little brat," replied the self-declared super pervert. "We'll be there soon enough. Like I told you 2 minutes ago." This did not placate the young blonde. "But Ero Sennin, I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm thirsty. I want to learn some awesome jutsus. I want to go on a date with Sakura-chan. I want to." "Enough," yelled Jiraiya, throwing his hands in the air. "I give up. You want something to do, Naruto." Naruto thought his prayers had been answered. Seeing how they weren't close to the next town yet, and Sakura-chan wasn't with them, that meant one thing. "Oh boy, are you going to teach me another awesome jutsu?" Jiraiya frowned at this. "Naruto, I'm already teaching you the Rasengan. That's a pretty darn awesome jutsu, even for me. In fact, why aren't you practicing that right now?" Naruto stuck his tongue out at Jiraiya and proceeded to blow raspberries. Upon stopping, he replied, "But we're walking, Ero Sennin. I can't concentrate hard enough to focus the Rasengan and walk at the same time." Jiraiya facepalmed. Literally. If the brat couldn't even do that much, what was he supposed to do? Believing himself to be out of options, Jiraiya checked every pocket he had. Stupid pocket were full of kunai and shuriken, along with a couple scrolls, but nothing that would shut up the eternal headache that was his traveling companion. Until he got to the back pocket of his pants, where the culmination of years of research was in written form. Jiraiya inwardly was chuckling to himself. "Oh man, I should let him read this, it'll shut him up good." "Okay brat. No, I'm not going to teach you a new jutsu." Naruto's entire posture dropped down at this. "But do not be dismayed. For I have in my possession a marvelous and timeless piece of literature. Behold." Jiraiya took out the first book of the famed Ika Ika series. Naruto was not impressed. "What the heck is that, Ero Sennin?" Jiraiya just grinned. "Read the first 2 chapters of this, brat. In fact, read them without once asking me if we're almost there yet. You do that, and I'll teach you a new jutsu, though it'll be after you learn the Rasengan, of course." "Got it." Jiraiya was praying this would work. Naruto was jumping and laughing in a field of flowers in his head. "Just read 2 chapters from a book. Cakewalk. Ero Sennin better teach me something awesome." "Okay Ero Sennin. You got it. But make sure that jutsu you teach me is really cool." Naruto said. "Okay kid, okay. But you gotta live up to the deal first. Here you go, and enjoy." "Hee hee hee," Jiraiya said as he gave the book to Naruto. Naruto sighed. Books were so infinitely boring. But he would survive through this ordeal to learn a jutsu from the Ero Sennin. Flipping the book open, he began to read the first page. Jiraiya for all intents and purposes was enjoying the serenity that was nature without Naruto's nagging voice. He closed his eyes, and the only sound that he could hear was the clacking his sandals made after every step. Jiraiya lost himself in a daydream of Tsunade's ripe breasts, and that unforgettable day when he struck gold and saw them without any stupid barriers in all their glory in that public onsen in Konoha. Of course, she eventually found him and beat him to within an inch of his life, but that wasn't the point. He chuckled to himself, remembering how she dragged Inoichi Yamanaka and demanded that he erase that image from his mind or face her wrath. Inoichi, in a perfectly rational desire to stay alive, complied with her demands, and escorted Jiraiya to the Anbu interrogation room. There, Jiraiya's quick thinking saved his oh-so-precious memory via bargaining. Jiraiya made a deal with Inoichi. Jiraiya would keep his memory, but Inoichi would also get to see what he saw. One mind-reading jutsu later, and the deal was sealed. Thank Kami that all men cannot resist the forbidden fruits that are Tsunade's breasts. Wait a second, it's still quiet. What? Jiraiya pulled himself out of the daydream as he realized it was still quiet. He looked down at Naruto, who was engrossed in the book. Jiraiya saw that Naruto was nearing the end of chapter 3, which was well above what the deal was. He. The kid's a natural pervert. I'm so proud. Oi Naruto. Naruto. Earth to Naruto. Naruto, I'm going to teach you AS class jutsu. Naruto stopped reading and looked up at that last part. Huh. Jiraiya was grinning like mad. Naruto, I said you only had to read up to chapter 2. I see that you're almost at 4. Like the book, eh? Naruto started turning a shade of red. No, I didn't like it. It's just, well. Jiraiya turned on his time to act like a mentor switch. Naruto, there's nothing wrong with liking it. Heck, you're right at that age where you should be curious. And I hope you are, you little brat. I don't know what I would do if my student was bent. Naruto had no idea what the hell he just said. Huh, what's bent? Jiraiya realized his blunder. How to explain this without destroying any innocence the kid might still have. Jiraiya of course forgot to take into account the fact that by letting Naruto read that book much of said innocence had already gone, poof. Well it's, playing for the other team. Yeah, playing for the other team. Jiraiya sagely nodded. This made Naruto even more confused. Playing for the other team. Are we playing a game? Jiraiya decided that subtlety wasn't going to work on Naruto. So he told it like it is. It means you like guys the same way you like your Sakura-chan, you stupid brat. The shade of red on Naruto's face was almost instantly replaced by a pale white color. What the heck is that? No, I like Sakura-chan. Not Sasuke. Oh my god, I'm going to be sick, Naruto said, pretending to vomit. Jiraiya chuckled as he hit Naruto in the back, going along with the vomit gesture. Well, I wouldn't hold it against you if you did. But nonetheless, it brings me great joy that you are a fellow partaker in the pleasure that is the female body. You like Sakura, right? Naruto nodded vigorously. So what is it you like about her? Naruto didn't even have to think. She's Sakura-chan. Jiraiya waited, and waited, and waited. As they continued on for the next minute, he realized that that was it. What the heck? He likes her because she's who she is. Granted, that's about as pure and genuine a love as love can get, but Jiraiya had a feeling that that's not exactly what Naruto meant. So you like her because of her name? That's kinda, I don't know, lame. Jiraiya deadpanned. Naruto was flabbergasted. Ero Sennin did not just defile the sacred love that he had for Sakura-chan. I don't like her because of her name. Although her name is really pretty too. Naruto trailed off, and mused for a bit. Then he derived some moral fiber from somewhere, and continued on. Sakura-chan is really pretty. She's really nice, and cares about everyone. Naruto was pleased with himself, and looked at Jiraiya with a smirk, daring the older man to beat that. Jiraiya went into the classic, I'm thinking, pose, and replied, from what I've seen with you and your interactions with your team, Naruto, forgive me if that's not exactly the impression I got. Jiraiya looked down at Naruto, who was shooting questions from his eyes. Your Sakura-chan is really pretty. Sure, but kiddo, did you see the forehead on her? You could hang a billboard on that thing. Naruto was incensed, and about to blow a head gasket when Jiraiya continued on. Okay, that was a joke, sorry brat. I'm sure she's pretty. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder and all that. But let's see. Jiraiya got a little serious. You think she's really nice? Whenever I see you talking to her, it ends with her punching your lights out. She cares about everyone. If the definition of everyone has changed in recent times to mean Uchiha Sasuke, then sure, she cares about everyone. Naruto was about to make a valiant rebuttal, when Jiraiya held a hand out to stop him, and proceeded to finish. Yeah kid, she's your first love. I know how that goes and whatnot. I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you, but she doesn't love you. I'm not sure if she even likes you. Naruto tore his gaze from Jiraiya, and looked at the ground, kicking a rock as he walked on. Truth be told, he knew where she stood. He always shrugged off her punches with a smile, and took each rejection as a sign that she would eventually notice him. Jiraiya sighed. Crushing a first love is always harsh. To do it now of all times probably wasn't the smartest thing he's ever done, but you have to pull rotten teeth out before the entire mouth has to be removed. Doesn't mean pulling out the tooth doesn't hurt though. He decided the brat needed some cheering up. Kid, you want true love? Naruto looked back up again, his facial expression shooting a question at him. Then look no further than my book. It will teach you all about true love, how to attain it, and all the joys of the female body. If you get to chapter 6, it'll even tell you all about the joys of lovemaking. Naruto kicked Jiraiya in the shin before that statement ended. Hard. As Jiraiya yelped like a little girl and hopped around while furiously massaging his quickly bruising shin, Naruto chuckled lightly to himself. Stupid Arrow Sennin. You really are a stupid Arrow Sennin, you know that. Naruto was saying, but now with a slight smile on his face. Jiraiya resumed a normal walking gait and smiled one of his rare genuine smiles. His shin didn't really hurt, but his antics brought a smile to the kid's face. So I'm told, you little brat. Don't worry about it, you're still young. You will come across many more women in your life, all the more because of your association with me, the famed Toad Sage. As a certain Konoha Junin says, you are still in the springtime of youth. Naruto got a vision of Guy and Rock Lee doing their signature thumbs-up pose with their absurdly white teeth outshining the sun. He involuntarily shuddered. Don't remind me Arrow Sennin. Jiraiya grinned. As he was about to reply, the town was finally visible to them on the horizon. Hey brat, we're almost in town. You want to race to the gate? If you win, I will teach you a stupendously awesome jutsu that will make you a ninja legend. If I win, you have to pay for dinner. You up for it? Naruto's response was to sprint off towards the village, yelling back, I'll see you in town Arrow Sennin. Don't keep me waiting too long, I don't want to be old like you. Jiraiya stopped for a second, taking great offense at the verbal jab. Old? I am not old you little brat. I am in my prime. You merely are too young to see that. Jiraiya nodded to himself at his conclusion, and proceeded to run full speed towards the town. He caught up to Naruto in no time, and passed by him. As much as I want to teach you that jutsu, I'm sorta broke, and need you to pay, so I have to win this race Naruto. No hard feelings okay? Naruto was in awe of how fast the old man could move. He could really move if given the proper motivation. Naruto decided to store this bit of information in his head as he slowed down to a jog. He wasn't going to catch up to Jiraiya. While jogging, he decided that, although he loved Sakura, she didn't love him, and that wasn't going to change anytime soon. He allowed himself to daydream about falling in love. Is it really possible for me to fall in love with someone who'll accept me for me? And for what I am? Naruto did some thinking, and came to a conclusion. Yeah, there has to be. Arrow Sennin said I'll meet many more women in my life, and at least one has to like me at some point. Satisfied with what he came up with, he put on his signature smile and came to a stop at the gate of the town, where a grinning Jiraiya was waiting for him. Where is she, Arrow Sennin? Naruto asked. You said she'd be in this town tonight. Jiraiya was pondering the same thing. Well, Tsunade wouldn't have traveled as fast as we were, and this is the only town for miles, so she either came here or is camping out somewhere, and knowing Tsunade, she needs sake every day if she's traveling, and she already would have drank all of the sake she packed on the first day, so she has to be here. Jiraiya concluded. Naruto blanched, and looked at Jiraiya. Wow, Arrow Sennin. That actually made sense. I guess you're not a stupid Arrow Sennin at least. Jiraiya sighed as he stopped looking around for Tsunade and looked at Naruto. Kid, even in the way you refer to me, I'm an Arrow Sennin. Sages are not stupid, you little brat. He ruffled Naruto's hair a bit before looking for Tsunade again. Naruto had already dispelled the 20 shadow clones he made to look for Tsunade. He had looked in every inn he could find, but to no avail. She wasn't even out in the streets. Then again, he was going off what Jiraiya told him to look for, which was for a really old blonde woman with the biggest, most perfect sets of breasts a man could ever want to touch. Jiraiya had checked all the bars but shockingly came up empty. He figured between him and Naruto that they checked every place she would have been. He noticed a lot of little kids running around even with the sun almost completely set, meaning this was a kid-friendly town, which meant the town probably didn't have casinos or any shady institutions. If Tsunade managed to find an underground gambling site, they weren't going to find her if they searched all night. Jiraiya was actually putting some real effort into finding Tsunade. He and Naruto had already spent 3 weeks on this goose chase. He had not kept up to date with his spy network, and the only plus he could see out of the entire trip was that Naruto had mastered 2 of the 3 steps to the Rasengan. But most importantly, he had not visited a brothel in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Arrow Sennin, Naruto said, pulling Jiraiya out of his thoughts. Since we can't find her, I think we should get a room or something before it gets completely dark out. Jiraiya could find no fault in that logic. I remember seeing a really good inn not too far from here while I was looking for Tsunade-san. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the last word Naruto said. Tsunade-san. What the heck? Since when do you respect people, you little brat? Naruto shifted his feet, and gave the reply, well, Tsunade-san's a Sannin, right? Jiraiya nodded. Orochimaru may have been the biggest jerk I've ever seen, but there was no doubting that he was crazy strong. You might be an Arrow Sennin, but you're probably really strong too. Jiraiya looked very smug at this. It's not that hard to believe that she would be equally as strong as you guys. Jiraiya chuckled. Oh Naruto, you have no idea how strong Tsunade is. No idea at all. Yeah Naruto, she's plenty strong. But I'm a little miffed at how she gets so much respect from you and I get nothing. Tsunade gambles, has a drinking problem, anger management issues, is physically violent, is under a genjutsu to hide how she really looks, and won't allow herself to be found by us. Jiraiya basically yelled at the end of his rant. Naruto chuckled. Arrow Sennin, I insert stomach growling noise here. Jiraiya laughed uproariously. Hungry huh? You little brat. Naruto looked away sheepishly. Yeah, we haven't eaten anything since we stopped for lunch 8 hours ago? Naruto nodded. Okay, well it just so happens that we're standing right in front of a family restaurant. Naruto looked to his left, and wouldn't you know it, they were. He realized that he should pay more attention to what was around him. It certainly would help him in the long run, being a shinobi and all that. Jiraiya grinned when Naruto looked to his left. The kid had no idea that they were right in front of a restaurant. He'd have to use this to one-up the brat later. Well brat, I did beat you to the town, so if you wanna grab some food, let's go. Jiraiya said. Naruto only shook his head as he walked into the restaurant, with a still grinning Jiraiya right behind him. Okay brat, go get us a tabl Tsunade. Jiraiya exclaimed, pointing his finger at a table occupied by a woman. The blonde woman at the table perked up at hearing her name, and when she saw who it was, she couldn't suppress her shock. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? Naruto was flabbergasted. That was Tsunade. He thought all the Sannin were 50 years old. That blonde lady looked like she was still in her 20s for crying out loud. How is she a Sannin? Naruto decided to voice his thoughts. Arrow Sennin, Aren't the Sannin supposed to be 50 years old? Jiraiya looked at Naruto, a little confused. Yeah, so. Naruto then replied, well, that lady over there doesn't look 50. Jiraiya laughed at this, and gave Naruto a mild noogie. I said she was under a genjutsu to hide her real appearance, remember? Naruto did a mental facepalm. Oh yeah. Jiraiya put his hand on Naruto's back. Come on kid, let's go over to Tsunade's table. Maybe you'll luck out and she'll pay dinner for us. Naruto snorted. Yeah right. If she's anything like you, she'll make me pay for her too. Jiraiya and Naruto sat down across from Tsunade. A waiter quickly came by, gave the two a glass of water, and asked if they were ready to order. Jiraiya began to skim through the menu as Naruto asked what ramen flavors they had. The waiter looked contrite as he replied, I'm sorry, but we do not have ramen on our menu. Naruto was in shock. Full-fledged shock. What kind of restaurant doesn't serve ramen? This broke the second of his three absolute laws of the universe, that all restaurants serve at least one flavor of ramen. Then again, his first law was that he would love Sakura-chan until the end of his days. He believed that the first law would be broken someday too. So basically in one day, his entire universe was turning inside out. Oh Kami. Naruto groaned. You don't serve ramen here. What am I supposed to eat? Huh. The waiter looked slightly miffed. I am sorry that we don't serve ramen here, but please do take a look at our menu. There are several dishes that I am sure you will find to your liking. Naruto didn't think so, but he looked at the menu anyways. Sure enough, nothing jumped out at him. Shaking his head, he began to wonder what he was going to do for dinner. During the entire exchange, Tsunade was slightly grinning to herself. Kami. He looked exactly like Nawaki did. Same attitude too. Nawaki loved tonkatsu as much as this kid seems to love ramen. Maybe. Tsunade intervened on the waiter's behalf. Waiter, one order of tonkatsu for the brat here. The waiter nodded, and Naruto just about exploded. What? You can't order for me. I have to pay for my own meal. I'm going to get what I want. Waiter-san, 5 bowls of miso ramen please. The waiter by now was getting exasperated. Once again, we don't serve ramen here. Please do try the tonkatsu. It is a dish that our restaurant does quite well, if I do say so myself. Naruto was about to send a retort when Jiraiya cut him off. Naruto, ever wonder why you're so darn short? Naruto nodded. You only eat ramen, you little brat. You need to diversify what you eat, so you intake the right nutrients so you can grow taller. Healthier too for that matter. Now eat the tonkatsu. Geez, it won't kill you. Naruto leaned back into his seat, clearly unhappy with the whole mess. Jiraiya sighed. I'll pay for your tonkatsu Naruto, so can you enjoy it now? Naruto looked up, and he nodded vigorously. Of course, you're still going to pay for my dinner. Waiter, 3 bottles of sake and 2 orders of curry rice for me. The waiter nodded, and left. Naruto stood up from his seat and loomed over Jiraiya, pointing his finger at him. What the heck Aro Sennin? Are you trying to bleed me dry? I had no idea you ate so much, or I never would have accepted that stupid deal. Jiraiya put his right hand on Naruto's head, and forced him to sit down. Geez brat, my meal costs less than 5 bowls of miso ramen, so what's got your panties in a knot? Naruto looked away, mumbling about old perverts needing to get drunk to feel young again. Jiraiya was about to show Naruto how young he exactly was via a painful punch to the face when Tsunade intervened on Naruto's behalf. So Jiraiya, who's the brat? Jiraiya shifted his focus to Tsunade. He's Uzumaki Naruto, the #1 most hyperactive knucklehead ninja in all of Konoha, he finished with a grin. Tsunade perked up at hearing the surname, and looked at Naruto seriously for the first time. Uzumaki. So he's. Jiraiya put up a hand to stop her. Yep, he's that. Tsunade shook her head and took another shot of sake. That was only her second one, so she still had a ways to go yet before she'd start yelling and throwing chairs around. Besides, this time, Jiraiya was here, so the damage she could do would be limited. Grinning at this knowledge, she immediately took her third shot of sake. Jiraiya, noticing this, immediately said, "I'm not paying for the damages." Tsunade smirked. "You wuss." She took her fourth shot of sake. "So what brings you to the outskirts of Konoha?" Jiraiya decided it was time to be serious. "You know that Orochimaru led an attack on Konoha and killed Sarutobi-sensei." Tsunade looked away, pouring herself a fifth shot, but not drinking it right away. "Yeah, I heard." She noticed Naruto looking down dejectedly, with the hint of tears in his eyes. Jiraiya was about to reply when the waiter arrived. "Here is your sake, sir." The waiter put 3 bottles of sake on their table, and gave Jiraiya a shot glass. "Your meal will arrive shortly." The waiter left to take the orders from another table. Jiraiya poured himself a shot of sake, and drank it, reveling in the pleasure that was alcohol. Ah, good stuff. He poured himself another shot. Picking it up, he turned to Tsunade. "The village needs a new Hokage, Tsunade. The council has determined that it will be you. They sent Naruto and me to bring you back to Konoha so you can begin your reign of terror as the Godime Hokage." Tsunade finished her 6th shot of sake and stared at Jiraiya impassively. Naruto did not take this news impassively. "She's the next Hokage. I thought we came to get her so she can fix Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke." "What the heck, Aro Sennin? Didn't you say she gambles a lot? And look at her, she's already on her 7th shot of sake, so she obviously has drinking issues." "And, no thanks. I decline," Tsunade said. And, Naruto finished lamely. Jiraiya chuckled. "Those words sound familiar. I recall you using them when I asked you out all those years ago." Tsunade smirked. Naruto blanched. "Why don't you want to be Hokage?" he asked. For the love of Kami-sama, he couldn't fathom why anyone would turn down the opportunity to be Hokage. Hell, he'd wear the hat right now if the council gave it to him. Tsunade shrugged. She was already slowing down. 8 shots and I'm already like this. Oh, this night is going to suck. I have no love for that village. Naruto's shock at why someone would refuse to be Hokage was quickly dissipating into righteous anger. "How can you not love your village? Aro Sennin told me that you were the granddaughter of the first Hokage. It's basically your village. How can you hate it? How can you not want to be Hokage? If they asked me to do it, I'd say yes in a heartbeat and be the Hokage right away." Naruto all but shouted the last few words. Tsunade blocked him out as best she could, but she couldn't block out the words he was shouting at the end. "Be the Hokage right away. Oh Kami-sama." Tsunade gave her full attention to Naruto. "So brat, you want to be Hokage or something?" Naruto nodded and gave Tsunade his trademark smile. "Yep, I'm going to be the greatest Hokage that ever lived." Tsunade flinched and physically moved back into her chair. She had heard those exact words from the 2 most important males in her life. To see someone who looks so much like Naoki say those words to her again was something she did not want. It brought back the worst memories of her life. The memories of their deaths. In Naoki's case, his bloodied body brought back to the morgue, barely recognizable. In Dan's case, her failing to save his life, even with all of her supposedly legendary medical jutsu. The memory of his blood on her hands was something she could never forget. The table had fallen into an uncomfortable silence at the end of Naruto's declaration. Tsunade was idly drinking shots when she was in the mood. Jiraiya was doing much of the same thing except he was additionally scoping out the restaurant for attractive women. Naruto was lost in his own thoughts. The waiter came back with the food to break the table out of its reverie. "Here you are, sir," he said as he handed Jiraiya his curry rice. "And here you are," he said as he handed Naruto his plate of tonkatsu. Jiraiya grinned over at Naruto. "Well kid, Thanks for the meal, as he greedily dug into his plate. Naruto tried a piece of his tonkatsu, and realized the thing tasted great. Not quite miso ramen level, but it might beat out shrimp ramen. He came to the conclusion that this tonkatsu was quite edible and delicious, and proceeded to tear through his meal at a lightning pace. Tsunade chuckled when she saw Naruto's reaction to the tonkatsu. So brat, taste any good? Naruto was stuffing his mouth with tonkatsu pieces, and consequently couldn't give a verbal reply. So he just nodded as he proceeded to choke himself to death with tonkatsu. Naruto wolfing down tonkatsu reminded Tsunade of when Nawaki used to do the same thing. She loved her little brother dearly, and the memory brought a faint smile to her lips. Drinking does help recalling the good old days, after all. After about 5 minutes, Naruto was done with his dinner. He leaned back, very satisfied with the meal. He was nowhere near full, but he decided he'd order some more after he digested what he already ate. Jiraiya wasn't even done with his first plate, but he looked like he was savoring his meal rather than pretend to be in an eating contest. Tsunade was already getting a buzz, and was getting quite bored of just watching the two of them eat. She pulled out a deck of cards, and asked if Jiraiya wanted to play a hand. If she wins, Jiraiya lends her some capital for gambling purposes. If Jiraiya won, she'd listen to what he had to say before telling him no. Jiraiya agreed, and Tsunade began to shuffle. It was then that a young girl with short black hair walked into the restaurant. She had on a black kimono, with a white undershirt. She would have looked perfectly plain had it not been for the small pig cradled in her arms. She looked around, and found the familiar blonde hair that her master had. Tsunade-sama. The veterinarian said that Taunton is perfectly fine, and that there's no need to worry about her leg, she yelled as she ran over to the table. Tsunade looked up during her shuffling. Oh Shizune, Taunton's okay then. Shizune slowed down as she approached the table. She noticed that there were 2 people sitting with her teacher. Upon closer inspection, she realized that the older man was none other than the Toad Sage, Jiraiya-sama, and she proceeded to introduce herself. Jiraiya-sama, it is a pleasure to meet you. Shizune said and bowed. Jiraiya stopped eating for a second to look up at Shizune. He recognized her as Dan's niece. She had grown up a lot since he saw her last 14 years ago. However, he thought she remained a part of the civilian population of the village. He was shocked to see her traveling with Tsunade. His train of thought next led him to his super pervert ways. He checked her out, and was sorely disappointed. Shizune had not filled out at all. She might have been a B cup at the very highest, and had nowhere near the sex appeal her goddess of a teacher had. Good evening, Shizune. Jiraiya replied. I had no idea that you left the village with Tsunade. I thought you remained a part of the civilian population of the village. Shizune blushed, and gave her reply, absently stroking Taunton's neck while doing so. After Uncle Dan's death, I had no family left in Konoha. Tsunade-sama was the only family I had left. I had no desire to be put into an orphanage, so I begged Tsunade-sama to let me follow her. It took some doing, but I managed to get her to say yes. Jiraiya nodded, realizing that that made perfect sense. Dan was a Junin, and there was no way Shizune wouldn't be a ninja. Well Shizune, why don't you take a seat and order something? Shizune smiled. I'd be glad to Jiraiya-sama, though I have a question. Who is that sleeping boy to your right? Jiraiya looked to his right, and wouldn't you know it, Naruto fell asleep. It was pretty late, well past the kid's normal bedtime. He chuckled to himself. Kid's still a little brat. I forget that at times. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto and started to lightly shake him. Naruto, wake up. Wake up you little brat. Naruto proceeded to start snoring. Shizune giggled at this, wondering who the cute little boy was. Jiraiya, realizing his efforts were getting him nowhere, proceeded to pull out the ultimate Naruto alarm clock. He bent over, and whispered in Naruto's ear, "All you can eat free miso ramen." Naruto shot up awake instantly, looking around excitedly for the free ramen. When there was none, and he only saw a laughing Jiraiya, Naruto was seething, and said, "Ga. Aro Senin, why did you wake me up? And where's my free all-you-can-eat miso ramen?" Tsunade laughed out loud when she realized what Jiraiya did to get him to wake up. Shizune's giggles escalated into a soft laughter of her own when she too realized what happened. Turning his head towards Tsunade, Naruto grinned sheepishly. "I guess there's no free ramen, huh?" Then he turned his head towards the other source of laughter. What he saw was a lightly laughing girl who looked to be a couple years older than him. She had a pig cradled in her arms, and she was wearing a plain black kimono. But that wasn't what Naruto was looking at. No, his attention was fixated on her smile. Her smile was more endearing than any he'd ever seen before. It was full of amusement and warmth. Just by looking at her smile, Naruto began to feel warm inside, and strangely enough, very happy. He couldn't describe what he was feeling. Never in his life had he seen anything so beautiful. Holy cow. Who is she? Naruto thought. Shizune stopped her laughing to introduce herself to the little boy. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. Must be because I'm holding a pig in my arms. Shizune mused. She kept her smile up and introduced herself to the little blonde. "Hello there. My name's Shizune, and this little piglet here is Tauntaun. Say hi, Tauntaun." Tauntaun gave a little squeal as a hello. Shizune's smile got brighter after Tauntaun said, "Hi," to Naruto. Tauntaun was awfully shy, and for her to greet anyone without running away was a major accomplishment. Turning her smile to Naruto, she asked him, "And what's your name?" Naruto, transfixed by how darn pretty she looked, could only manage his name. "Naruto," he said. "Uzumaki. Naruto. Naruto-kun. Shizune said. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-kun." Naruto had gotten past the shock of seeing such a tender smile being aimed at him, and smiled brightly back at Shizune. "It's nice to meet you too, Shizune-san." Naruto replied. Shizune chuckled, and looked a little peeved. "Naruto-kun, no need to attach the san. You're making me feel old when you do that. Just call me Shizune." Naruto readily agreed, and was secretly pleased that she had taken to calling him using the kun suffix so easily. During the exchange, Jiraiya and Tsunade were focused on their poker hand. Jiraiya had just traded in 3 cards, getting himself a full house, aces over 9s. He was grinning like mad inside, but managed to look impassive on the outside. He really should have upped the ante on this little bet. Tsunade wasn't the legendary sucker for nothing. Though now that he thought about it, is that title of hers a double entendre? Oh boy, he just done it. He couldn't stop the lecherous grin from exploding out onto his face. Tsunade decided to trade in 4 cards, having flopped nothing except for the ace of hearts. As she went to trade her cards in, she saw Jiraiya's face, and knew the eternal pervert was probably thinking about her in some shape or form. Tsunade shot him an icy glare that promised pain in the not-too-distant future. Throwing her 4 cards down, she drew 4 cards from the deck. She saw that the first 3 cards were the 10, Queen, and King of Hearts. The last card was hidden because of the way she picked them up. Tsunade put on her poker face, but it was difficult to keep up, because adrenaline was shooting through her system faster than Jiraiya can run after getting caught peeping. She then peeled the last card out from behind the King of Hearts to reveal the 2 of spades. Groaning out loud, because at this point she had nothing, and she knew Jiraiya had something, she threw her cards down and took her 11th shot of sake. "Kami, luck is never on my side." Jiraiya laughed wholeheartedly, showing Tsunade his full house. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at his beautiful hand, and resigned herself to her fate. "Okay Jiraiya, let's hear the nonsense." Jiraiya was about to start, when he noticed that Naruto and Shizune really hit it off. They were talking to each other so naturally you'd think the little brat never had any insecurities. Being serious for a moment, as he knew that the conversation between their apprentices could go a long way in developing Naruto's social skills and confidence, Jiraiya motioned the waiter to bring him 2 more bottles of sake. Tsunade at some point went through his second bottle, bring her shot count up to 19. Yo Tsunade, what the council wanted me to tell you will actually take quite a while. Jiraiya said, making Tsunade groan in disgust. She decided she needed to be half sober for this, so she went through a quick set of hand signs, and performed a medical jutsu on her abdomen. When Jiraiya asked her a question through a raised eyebrow, she told him, I think I only want to hear this once, so I purged my system of some of the alcohol. She grinned. If it weren't for this jutsu, I'd have died of alcohol poisoning so long ago. Ha! Tsunade finished inordinately proud of herself. Jiraiya only shook his head at his former teammate as he got up and sat down at a table a couple tables away from Naruto and Shizune. The two didn't even notice Jiraiya leaving, they were too engrossed in their own conversation. When Tsunade raised her eyebrow, Jiraiya just motioned for her to sit down at his table. When she did, he whispered to her, some of this information is sensitive. It involves Naruto to an extent. Shizune, who I assume is a leaf ninja, Tsunade nodded, isn't a Junin, so she isn't allowed to hear A-rank secrets. Right on cue, the sake arrived, and Tsunade took her 20th shot of the night. Ah, feels only like shot number 3. Jiraiya could only chuckle as he began to tell the message that the council wanted him to give to Tsunade. In the back of his mind, he hoped that Shizune would help Naruto break out of his shell. Wow, Naruto-kun, to have to fight against an A-rank Nukenin from Kurigakure on your first sea mission is very impressive. Shizune said, it speaks volumes of how skilled your team is that none of you died in the mission. She was impressed. It was ridiculous for them to continue on after meeting the Demon Brothers, which made the mission at least a B rank right there. To have to fight Zabuza and his protege not too soon after made it a borderline A rank mission, which not even a team of seasoned Chunin are sent on. She frowned at Kakashi's judgment, who put his team in a situation that could have 9 times out of 10 would have killed at least one of them. Naruto smiled at the compliment. Very rarely did someone pay so much attention to him. He could count the number of people on one hand, Iruka, Old Man Hokage, and the Ichiraku father and daughter combo. Out of those 4, Ayame was the only girl, and she was always busy making his ramen when he came by for a meal, so she really didn't get to talk to him as much as the other 3. In that sense, Shizune was the first girl to really sit down and listen to him, and she even seemed to enjoy it. Naruto couldn't remember a happier time in his life than what he was feeling right now. Shizune-chan, Naruto began. He called her this by mistake earlier on, and Shizune didn't take offense. If anything, she seemed to blush a little, and Naruto took that as an okay to call her that way. How come you're traveling with Tsunade-san? An innocent enough question, but to answer the question, she had to remember the worst memory of her life, when the last family member she had fell in combat. Shizune faltered, but put on a grin nonetheless. She noticed that Naruto was very hesitant to ask her anything in the beginning of their conversation. She had managed to get him to be more talkative, and she didn't want to deny him an answer, which she believed would have made him be quiet for good. She didn't want that. She could see the same pain in her eyes that she saw in her own eyes so many years ago. Steeling herself, she began to answer his question. Naruto-kun, you learned about the Third Great Shinobi War in the academy, right? Naruto nodded. He didn't remember much about it. More correctly, he didn't remember paying attention to Iruka while he was lecturing the class about it. But he did remember what the Yondaime did during the war. Naruto hero worshipped the greatest of the Hokages, after all. Sorta. That was the one where Yondaime-sama killed a lot of Iowa ninja and earned the nickname, the Yellow Flash, right? Naruto tried hesitantly. Shizune nodded. Yes, the third war was between Konoha, Kumo, and Iwa. At the time, it wasn't uncommon for tens of ninja to die daily. Naruto blanched. Outside of the invasion, Naruto didn't know anyone who died on a mission for Konoha. Shizune chuckled, though there was no mirth behind it. Yes, hard to believe, isn't it? Naruto nodded. Shizune sighed, took a deep breath and continued on. She wasn't looking at him now, she seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. My uncle Dan was a Junin for Konoha during the war. Naruto stilled. The word, was, didn't imply anything good. My parents were killed in a Kumo ambush, and I would have been just another child added to the growing responsibility of the orphanage had Uncle Dan not taken me in. Shizune then did the oddest thing. She smiled. The time I had with Uncle Dan were some of the happiest of my life. I knew he was a Junin. I knew what that meant. I knew that he killed enemy ninja to protect our village, and that he saw friends and comrades dying around him every day. Shizune then looked right into Naruto's eyes. But you know what, Naruto-kun? He never brought that back home. He told me how he had lost his sister to an illness before I was born. He told me he was over it, but no one ever really is, and I knew that each time he came back to the village after a mission, he went to her grave first before coming home. Shizune took a deep breath, leaned back into her chair ever so slightly, and continued on. But none of that was important to me. I didn't know it then, but I know now that he was trying to do for me what he couldn't do for his sister. All I knew at the time was that he was the only one who cared for me, and loved me. And he always came back. Did you know that Naruto? Naruto shook his head, but she wasn't looking at him. She seemed to get angry, ever so slightly. He always returned from his missions. He'd come back well before he said he would, which always made me happy. It became such that I took it for granted, that he'd always come back. Naruto was holding on to her every word. His attention was so focused on her that even Jiraiya would have praised how hard he was concentrating. Shizune had lost herself in her retelling, and almost forgot that she was just supposed to answer Naruto's simple question of why she was traveling with Tsunade. Shizune only meant to give Naruto some background on what happened, but once she started, she just couldn't stop. She had held back her emotions for 14 long years. That was long enough. The Hokage assigned Dan on a mission. Naruto noticed that she no longer called him uncle. It was simple enough. A B-rank mission to scout out the borders for a suspected gathering of Iwa ninja. They were supposed to confirm the massing of Iwa troops, and come back with a rough idea of how many ninja were there. Dan's team went the day after. He had already done this mission several times. I didn't even worry about him when he left. She paused. Naruto quickly saw why. She was trying to hold back the tears that threatened to get out. It was a trap, Naruto-kun. Shizune looked at him again and smiled. She managed to hold the tears at bay, but by doing so, had lost control of her voice. Some of their ninja had already crossed the border, and by the time Dan's team reached the border, the Iwa ninja surrounded them. The mission was supposed to last half a day. By the end of the second day, I heard that Tsunade-sama had gone against the orders of the Hokage and took a rescue team to see what happened. She found Dan on the ground. He was bleeding out, and had been for hours. The Iwa ninja tortured him for information, but he refused to say anything. Naruto had turned ashen. He was learning real fast that the life of a ninja is not fun and games. He vaguely remembered the bell test Kakashi-sensei gave them, when he told Sakura to kill him or Sasuke dies. That lesson hit home, and he thought he understood the point of the lesson. How naive he was. This was far more horrible than anything he could have even had nightmares of. Shizune shook her head, and took a couple deep breaths to calm herself. He couldn't say anything, Naruto-kun. What Iwa wanted to know was the identity of the yellow flash. If he said that, Iwa could have infiltrated the village and killed him in his sleep, or hold his family hostage. And I know you know how essential the Yellow Flash was to being victorious in the war. Naruto nodded, his expression grim. The Yellow Flash earned that title because of a jutsu that allowed him to travel at impossible speeds with a single seal, allowing himself to overpower enemy armies alone. He had no idea that 4 people gave their lives to protect the Flash's identity, quite possibly saving his life and the lives of his family members. Heck, you could throw all the people of Konoha in there as well. The war would not have been won with the Yellow Flash. Now Naruto, Shizune said. Naruto looked at her after completing his train of thought. What I just told you I have not told another soul. I ask that you please keep this a secret between us, is that okay? Naruto vehemently nodded. Shizune had quite possibly told him her innermost secret, and he'd sooner denounce Ramen than betray Shizune after that. The thing is, Naruto. Ninja get ambushed all the time. I told you my own parents were killed because of one. I don't know if they were tortured for information or not, but realistically, they were. Shizune said. Naruto nodded, but had no idea where she was going with this. In that case, Dan's death shouldn't have made me leave the village for 14 years and not once want to return, right? Naruto got the answer to his question, though he had already surmised as much. She left because the only person in Konoha who cared for her had been killed, and she had nothing left in the village anymore. This didn't answer why she left with Tsunade-san of all people, though. As Naruto was about to ask Shizune why she left with Tsunade, Shizune cut him off. Good Naruto. You're probably asking why I left with Tsunade-sama then, right? Naruto nodded, slightly impressed with her mind-reading ability. Did she have Yamanaka blood? Shizune laughed, and Naruto flinched. This laugh did not give him the feeling of warmth that he got when he first met her. No, this laugh was mirthless, with a level of underlying fury that Naruto couldn't understand. Days before Dan died, the Yellow Flash and Jiraiya-sama went to the Hokage and said there was a breach of security. That their information network regarding Iwa was compromised. Heavily classified information was being leaked to the enemy, meaning someone of high rank in Konoha was the traitor. Jiraiya-sama didn't know who the leak was. He only knew that it existed. He recommended that all missions regarding Iwa be put on hold until either the leak was found or they received new information from a new source. The thing is that the Hokage knew that by holding missions back against Iwa, he would let Iwa get closer and closer to Konoha. And there was no telling how long it would take Jiraiya-sama to earth out the leak. Finding a new source of information on an enemy nation is hard enough, let alone having to find one that's reliable. Given an impossible situation, the Hokage did something that I will never forgive him for. Naruto's eyes widened. He waited for her to continue, but Shizune was shaking. She wasn't scared or sad or anything like that. No, she was shaking because she was having trouble containing her fury. Shizune-chan, Naruto said. Shizune looked at Naruto and calmed down for a second. Then Naruto asked her what the old man did, which brought back her shaking with renewed vigor. The Hokage decided to send a team out to the Iwa border, to give off the illusion that we were still ignorant of their plans, in an attempt to lure the spy out. Naruto closed his eyes. He knew what that meant. The plan worked, Naruto-kun. It worked. The Iwa spy, extremely relieved that he hadn't been found out about yet, proceeded to do his normal duties. But by that time, Jiraiya-sama had narrowed down the number of potential leaks to 10. 8 Anbu, the Yellow Flash, and Jiraiya-sama each followed one of the potential leaks around. The one Jiraiya-sama followed happened to be the leak, and he was dealt with accordingly. A major victory for the village. Shizune spat out. Naruto realized what the old man had done to Shizune. He had sent her uncle on a true suicide mission. He sent them knowing of the dangers they were going to face. He sent her uncle on a mission knowing that he wouldn't come back alive. The 4 deaths probably saved more lives in the long run, but how can you explain that to the survivors of the dead? Shizune was nearing the end of her answer. Well, there you have it, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry I dragged the answer out so long. I didn't mean to, but once I started to talk about it, I couldn't stop. I'm sorry for telling you all that. Shizune couldn't stop one tear from falling. Naruto saw the tear fall. It's okay, Shizune-chan. He put on his trademark smile, which got a small grin from her. I'm actually really touched that you told me all that. It means you really trust me and stuff, right? Shizune chuckled, and nodded. How had this little boy wormed into her heart so quickly? She found it easier to talk to him than anybody she had met before, even Tsunade-sama. It had to be the combination attack of his smile and his eyes. The cheeky smile that he wears to mask what he really feels. Who did he think he was fooling? And his eyes, if you look into them long enough, you see all the pain that he's endured in his life thus far, an amount far too great for someone his age. But it's because of that that he's so empathetic, and can understand your pain on a level no one else can. There's just one more thing, Shizune-chan. Naruto began to ask. Shizune turned to face him and looked at him funny, her facial expression asking him a question. If you don't mind, Shizune-chan, I didn't really understand why Tsunade-san was the one you left with. I can understand why you would want to leave, but I don't see why she wanted to. I remember her saying earlier that she didn't love the village at all. Why is that? If possible, Shizune's facial expression showed even more pain than she did during the entire retelling of her uncle's death. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and said in barely above a whisper words that Naruto would never forget. Oh, that, Naruto-kun. That's simple. She loved him. She was his fiancé.